In this episode, you will watch a mysterious stone idol, new ritual stone passages, giant stone walls, sacrificial pits, and unexplained till now stone spheres protruding from the rocks. The megalithic complex Cherna Niva near the village of Blato is quite mysterious, and information about it is scarce. Even its location on the map is rather approximate, a pin in the woods. No directions or travelogues from other enthusiasts. Switching to satellite imagery doesn't help much. We decide to approach the place from the northwest because it looks close to the road. After parking the car at a turnoff, we start to make our way through the bushes in search of our destination. The whole forest is infested with lichens, which densely cover the branches of bushes and trees. Even just for this view, it is worth sweating on the hill. The forest looks enchanted. There are some traces of paths, but they sometimes disappear, sometimes branch, and generally, we follow our intuition most of the time. At one point, however, we are convinced that this is the wrong approach, and we decide to go to the neighboring village of Blato and try from there to ask someone local for directions or even look for a sign. The village streets are empty, so we catch one of the dirt roads, which can be seen in satellite images and leads more or less in the direction of the lone pin in the woods. This turned out to be a good strategy, and we even managed to take drone shots of our movement on dusty roads. We reach a section where even the dirt road ends, and from here we can only continue on foot. The rocks we are looking for are already visible in the distance, so we are confidently heading there. There is a steep descent through a deciduous forest, crossing the gorge of a small river, and after a short climb we are at the first rock we saw in the distance. The first thing a person notices is the head and eye of the rock idol. The whole rock is covered with carvings of round niches, as well as those with hemispheres carved in stone, which are probably a manifestation of the cult of the sun, but do not look much like the more common in different parts of the country solar circles, which are rather concave, not convex like these. A quick glance with the drone from above reveals that the eye seen from below is actually an opening for the outflow of ritual fluids poured into the sacrificial pit at the top of the rock. The other rocks around have many such pits on their tops, but it is not clear whether they were made by humans or by nature. Close B is another rock block, which combines 3 tunnels on different levels. 2 of them are made by placing a horizontal stone block between 2 nearby rocks, and the third is formed by touching 2 of the huge vertical stone pieces. Ritual pits can also be seen here. In such formations, I am always impressed by how thin are the supports of the stone blocks. Probably wind and water have done their job, but I assume that people might have also carved them additionally. Like other megalithic complexes in Bulgaria, this Like other megalithic complexes in Bulgaria, this one is located on a site with a good view of the surrounding terrain. An interesting carving in the form of a gutter can be seen on one of the stone blocks, as well as a circular ritual pit right next to it. Here is the third tunnel. I turn the camera over for you to see how narrow it is, and actually one has to crawl on one's knees to cross. I emphasize again how thin are the foundations of all the massive blocks that make up this stone ensemble. You can see here, the contact with the underlying rock is literally at several tiny points. The lowest tunnel is practically the highest, it can be passed easily by an upright person. And here the stone block balances on several small fulcrums. The next rock complex is a very interesting high structure, composed of mostly large and small blocks that look like laid by human hands on top of each other, but also can be a product of natural forces. You can see how smooth some of them are and how they are arranged. I purposely insert the camera into these vertical cracks to show you that this is not a monolithic rock but seems more like some kind of construction. For example, this rock, the lowest in the structure, is separated from the rock block above it. I do not rule out the possibility that the space between the two was opened by the work of freeze-thaw processes, wind, and sand, but it looks so precise that one wonders. And here the rocks are perforated by my favorite process of the so-called cavernous weathering or honeycomb weathering, which is very typical of rocks in the Red Rock region of Utah. Here are some photos from the Valley of Fire, and more materials on the topic can be found on the site. There is a link in the description to the video. In the immediate vicinity, there are several rock slabs, leaning against each other like books lying on a shelf. And here is the rock group from a bird's eye view. It is clear that the highest stones are not part of monolithic rock, but look as if they are placed on top of the other rocks, with at least two circular pits clearly visible on the top slab. I also see other rock groups in the area. I went to some of them in person, and I came across others by drone while flying around the area. Almost all have pits, grooves, and gutters on their upper surfaces. It is very difficult to judge what is made by man and what is made by the influence of the sun, wind, and water. Here is another protruding stone hemisphere carved into the rock, as well as a few fairly regular spherical sacrificial pits. For them, I have no hesitation that they are carved by human hand. This is the stone passage I passed a while ago but seen from above. Everything is very overgrown and it is difficult to imagine the connection between the individual stone complexes, but I'm sure there is one, and the whole place is a very large stone sanctuary with different elements that were once united in a common structure. I continue with my tour of the forest and find 2 or 3 quite large ritual pits with clearly defined edges. Some rocks have extremely regular oval holes, but contrary to your expectations, I think they are of natural origin rather than human. It's just that these are obvious signs of cavernous weathering of the rocks, and it forms such very characteristic perforations. And here, quite by chance, I find the best stone hemisphere in the region, carved into an interesting stone block with a fairly flat surface and smooth edges. It is carved by hand. There is no way the wind and water can so purposefully carve a spherical shape. These perforations on the side of the hemisphere are possibly marked by the ancient master, so as to facilitate the crafting of the hemisphere. Maybe the goal was even to form a full sphere because there is a lot of digging at the back. This rock slab impressed me as quite regular and raised at an interesting angle to the terrain. And here we find other two rather large and deep ritual pits, which even seem to have gutters for draining the fluids. Another rock slab is artificially raised relative to the surrounding terrain and supported by stone. And I will finish my video by showing you a very well-formed hemisphere. As you can see, the area of the megalithic complex is large, it has not been studied at all, and there are a lot of artifacts. For the short time I spent there and touring rather randomly, I'm sure I've seen less than 20% of everything worth seeing. We are going back on the dusty roads, and I am rather pessimistic that the official archaeology in Bulgaria will ever find the time and desire to study the megalithic site of Blackfield. Yes, it is difficult to access, it will probably never become the equivalent of Perperikon or Tachel, but I think it is interesting enough to organize at least 2 to 3 expeditions to describe, map, measure, and photograph it. If you have the opportunity and you are not afraid of thorns, visit the place and see it for yourself. I will upload my own meandering walk through the bushes. You can download it from the website to have a better chance to find the objects I shot in this episode. I hope you found the video interesting. See you in the next episode.